Hello, remote learners. This is Dr. Shivers. I'm here for your story time. I'm going to read a book called How This Book Was Made. It's written by a guy named Mac and illustrated by a guy named Adam. I just want to share a little bit about these two really creative and really comedic souls. The author was born in California, and when he was just a baby, it was many, many books that made this kid into an author. And then the illustrator says he was praised from an early age for his drawing ability, and he practiced 10,000 hours. He got a degree in illustration from the University of Arizona, and he practiced another 10,000 hours.
This is Mac Barnett. This is Adam Rex. This is How This Book Was Made by Mac Barnett and Adam Rex. This is how This Book Was made. These are Mac's pencils. This is Mac's Mac. That's funny. Here is Mac writing. This is Adam's scissors. These are Adam's scissors? Is scissors plural? Scissors! This is a tiger. This is a paper tiger. This is Mac writing a metaphor about creative doubt.
The tiger is a metaphor for creative doubt.
Mac just likes tigers.
This is where Mac gets his ideas. Actually, Mac got the idea for this book from a child at a school visit. This is New York City, the center of the publishing industry. This is peanut butter, the center of a candy bar.
I snack compulsively when I'm making a book.
This is an editor. This is what an editor does. Here is Mac rewriting. Here's Adam's paper.
It's just construction paper.
This is a paper Adam. This is a paper Mac. Adam also made these, which he colored on this to make this. This is Adam's tendinitis. This is the planet Earth. This is the Earth Adam made. This is Malaysia. This is a printing press. This is procrastination. This is the 21st century global economy. This is Mac's dog. These are Adam's cats. This is creative doubt. This is Ben Franklin. This is a pirate. This is a spacewalk. That is a hamburger. These are the end papers. This is the climax. And that's how this book was made.
So this book, How This Book Was Made. Again, you've already met Mac and you've met Adam, and here we go. At first, this book wasn't a book. It was an idea. Ideas can come at funny times. When I had the idea for this book, I went to a quiet place and I wrote. I wrote from early in the morning until late at night. It was very hard work. Soon I had a bunch of words on paper. These words were a first draft. The first draft of this book was not so good. Neither was the second or the third or the 12th, but writing lots of drafts is a useful part of the writing process. For instance, when the tiger came back for revenge because I beat him in arm wrestling, I burned these drafts and scared him away. I worked, and with the 21st draft, I was done. So I sent my words to an editor in New York City. An editor tells you what parts of your story are good and what parts need to be fixed. She is like a teacher, only she works in a skyscraper and is always eating fancy lunches. Hopefully some of your teachers have a few fancy lunches once in a while. My editor called me and said, "I love this. This is perfect. Now here are all the things you have to change." And she sent the story back to me. I took some of her advice and I ignored some of her advice. And then I sent the story back to her. She sent the story right back and asked me why I had ignored some of her advice. And I said, I didn't think they were good ideas. And she said, I thought they were great ideas. And I said, well, let's agree to disagree. And she said, let's agree with me. And I said, you're not the boss of me. And it went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until most of the United States of America was crossed out with their messages going back and forth. Many Americans were not happy about this. You can see where it crossed right over the middle of a town, a little firefighter. Eventually, my editor loved all my words, and I loved all my words. Even the tiger who had returned with a posse loved all of my words. Look at that tiger's posse. I was finished writing, but this book was still not a book. The words needed pictures, so my editor in New York sent them to an illustrator in Arizona. It took the illustrator a very long time to draw all the pictures for this book. I don't know what he was doing that whole time, but he must have been working very hard. I don't know if that's the case or not. I sat around and waited. Finally, the illustrator sent all of his artwork to New York, and his art and my text sat on a skyscraper waiting to be printed. Now, the fastest way to get this book to bookstores and libraries would be to print it nearby in New York City or Philadelphia or maybe even Miami. But this book was printed in Malaysia. Malaysia, where contraptions called printing presses rumble and steam, a lady put the words and the art into one side of the machine, and out the other came this book. And then another book, and another, thousands and thousands of books. This book was buried below a great pile, so tall you could see it from space. Astronauts looked down on Earth that day and saw a stack of books and the Great Wall of China right next to each other. They smiled and then floated around a bunch while eating astronaut ice cream. But that's science. This is literature. And at last, this book was ready to be read. It needed to get to the United States as fast as it could. The fastest way to be to put it on a jet. But this book got put on a boat, a slow boat that took all the books across the sea. The journey was dull until the pirates arrived. The pirates swarmed the boat and quickly overran it. They tied up the crew and stole the captain's keys. The lead buccaneer kicked open the hatch to the ship's hold. The pirates held their breath and imagined their treasure. There was no gold inside, just books. Pirates don't read, so they sailed away. When this book came to the harbor, it was put on a truck. The driver put the truck into gear and drove all the way down the highway. He braked hard for a tiger crossing the road, and this book fell out the back. The tiger's on his phone. You gotta watch out for those. An eagle swooped down and grabbed this book for her babies, not to eat, not to read. Eagles don't read books either. She ripped out a corner, but her chicks didn't like it. They pushed this book out of their nest. This book briefly served as a roof for a toad until it was picked up by a dog that brought it back to its owner, who lost it that night at a bad hand of poker. To a truck driver whose load was one book short, he made his delivery to a woman who put it on a shelf next to many other books. This book waited, and I waited. And the tiger waited, and the posse waited, and the pirate and the astronaut and the editor waited, and the illustrator and the old lady and her dog waited, and the truck driver and the angry ink-splattered Americans and the family of eagles and the people in Malaysia, they waited. We all waited here in this book, which was practically bursting, just waiting for someone to open it, because a book can have words and pictures and paper and tigers, but a book still isn't a book, not really, until it has a reader, just like you remote learners. And then you came along. And you read this book through to the very last page, which was how this book was made. We know that you all are authors and illustrators and super creative, and we can't wait to see all the writing and all the creativity that you've been doing. So please keep it up. Have a great week, everybody.